Good morning. It's Bruce Thomson here in New Zealand at about 8 o'clock in the morning on the 22nd of June. And a few of us have agreed to have a teleconference about the future of work when robotics and AI surpass what humans can do and what will happen to us. Because until now, the technology that's taken over work has meant that we still were able to get other kinds of work, and so we had some disruption, but we still ended up with a job and pay and a sense of worth doing something. The technology is now getting to the point where it's so smart, and the physical robots can do things far more strongly and more faster and so on than humans can. So we're now in a position where what happens to the humans? And so we're going to discuss that if I can get some people to join me. I've had an attempt at this before, but this teleconferencing, but I found that people had trouble getting on, or the invitations didn't go out. So I'm hoping that maybe some people will be able to get through, especially Steve and Merrill Smith, who's I know he's keen to be here right now, but it's a question of whether the invitation gets out. I'll try inviting again, see if that works, and maybe we'll get a discussion going, because there's 2 or 3 people saying they want to watch this. I'll try and make it entertaining for you if you're watching this waiting with my own thoughts about it, but I'm really hoping that 1 or 2 people from the Singularity Hub will join me. The Singularity Hub is a group of people interested in the highest of technologies that are known to humans at the moment. It's related to a university in California where all sorts of interesting topics like artificial intelligence, robotics, graphene, anti-aging technology and biotech, crowdfunding, all the new technologies that are going to be very disruptive. If you're interested, you can go to singularity.org or singularity.com and you'll find that group of people being talked about there. I still haven't found anyone to join me yet. I'm going to send another invitation. Just give me a few seconds. Okay. Invite people. There's a box here. I'll invite from the Hubbers Circle, so it's Singularity Hub people. Grinders, they're people who are interested in avant-garde implants in their bodies, such as magnets and electronic devices, to extend the ability of their bodies to communicate with the outside world and learn about their own bodies. I think that'll do it. Invite them, see if anyone gets that and whether they can respond. That the way it went. Invitation posted. Well, I'll give you an example. I was a telephone exchange technician from age about 17, and in around, that was 1967 I started, and in about 1980 they discovered digital technology, electronics, and I was fascinated by that, but it basically put me and hundreds of others out of job. I went overseas instead, but when I came back it was all digital and they really didn't need technicians as much as they did. But I was able then to get into that digital technology. I became a computer instructor. I sold PCs out of the bedroom of my home, and I became a technical writer as well, and a lot of that was to do with IT in corporations, government departments. So I was still living off the new technology, and I did quite well out of that. But you can imagine that soon there'll be computers that can switch telephone exchange, well, they already do, switch telephone exchange traffic between people without any problem at all, and don't much need humans except for a handful of them designing better and better telephone exchanges. So where does that leave me? Well, I've worked 45 years and now I'm retired. I haven't died. I've got enough money in the bank to be able to live reasonably well, in addition to a pension that I've got, and I have a couple of people renting rooms in my house, so I'm doing okay. It's a modest life, and it's a wonderful life. So this topic impinges on people who are retired, because they know this experience. You can either have a dreadful, depressed retirement, or you can have a great time. It's really up to whether you know how to do it or not. Similarly, a lot of people between the age of about 0 and, say, 32 are educated. Either they're educated by their parents, or they go to primary school, secondary school, college, and if you're a doctor, you emerge at about age 32 and you're able to practice medicine. Now, all that time has not been so-called productive time. You've been educating yourself. So that's fine, as long as the human being educated isn't competing too hard with an intelligence, some sort of intelligent being that can learn all that stuff that a person would learn, say a doctor learns until they're age 32, in 10 minutes. What do you do then? So you've got a new intelligence that surpasses a human intelligence and can do everything, whether it be physical and robotics in a factory or doing surgery, anything like that. And you've got an intelligence and robotics combined that can surpass that person who was starting at the outset. That 1-year-olds think, I've got a life ahead of me as a doctor. They haven't. They're just not needed. So it'll depend on the generosity of the being, whether it's being shaped by us to look after us or look after itself. My guess is that it'll probably look after itself. Now, it would be in its interest to use us in as much as it needs us, and then, if necessary, to remove us if we were a problem. So using us could be all sorts of dreadful things. It could be studying its origins and studying brains. And just as we don't care much about rabbits when we're testing them for our shampoo, it wouldn't necessarily care much about whether we were that uncomfortable, unless that discomfort somehow spoiled the experiment. So that alarms me. I'm not running around screaming about it, but it's worth talking about. And in as much as you look at it from the human point of view, a lot of the enjoyment of life is your sense of contribution, how much worth you feel, self-worth, and a lot of that self-worth arises from your usefulness to other people. The reason people get very depressed when they're unemployed is because they feel they're useless, and they feel they are therefore at risk of being excluded by the tribe, which has always required us to some degree to be useful. If we aren't useful, then we get excluded, and in primitive times that meant we didn't get food and protection from the elements and shelter and all that sort of thing. So being unemployed attacks our feeling of being worth something to the tribe, and therefore our usefulness, and therefore whether or not the tribe is going to support it. And even though that's not experienced obviously, it can be experienced unconsciously, and I think that's what's happening. And that's why people are alarmed, including me, about being made useless by machines. Can we stop it? Well, it seems as though we can't stop it, because it seems, from what I've read, I've been involved with a group called Energy Resources and Running on Empty. They were concerned about the peak oil problem and extinction of the species through overrunning our carrying capacity, which is heavily supported by the fuel known as petroleum, and it's going to start to dry up and run down soon. So we've been talking for years about what happens to humans. And one of the things that we talked about, especially Jay Hansen, who ran it, was the idea of what drives humans. And to cut a long story short, it seems to be the best model of looking at why humans do anything or exist is that there's this grand evolutionary jumble of competing organisms, starting with the most simple ones, little one-celled animals of DNA, the first constructs of DNA, and all those things jumble around. They haven't got any brains at all, but they're in the system, this grand jumble of trial and error between competing organisms that get created by accident with each other, all jumbling around, and in conjunction with the environment, which damages them and changes them and mutates them and stuff. Some become better than others at surviving just by chance, and of course they then outcompete the ones that aren't so good. So we get this, what I call the grand jumble of things, where more and more evolution takes place. It's called natural selection, and you get smarter and smarter. Now that process, what I call the grand jumble, doesn't care about anything. It only cares, it doesn't care, it has no brains at all, it's just a process. So we can't expect the universe to care for us in that way as individuals or even as a species. So that is the fundamental of this conversation, which is about what happens to us when the AI and robots surpass us. I see them as a part of the grand jumble, even though the software is software. If you're in the artificial intelligence fraternity, I used to work in it a while ago, you will have followed recently that the artificial intelligence can evolve itself. There's examples on YouTube. You could, I can't toss one at you, but you can do a search for evolution thinking AI, and you'll find that the AI can not only get smarter because humans make it smarter, but it can be evolved itself. It can be taught to do a trial and error of its behavior, so that it discovers from its mistakes what went wrong, and it's because it's been programmed with a purpose or a point, or to even find purposes and points. It can progressively advance to become more and more intelligent. For example, it can learn to walk. You can give it a physical construct, the two-dimensional graphical being, and it's told that it should try to get from A to B as quickly as it can. And it will try all kinds of structures as if it's just a couple of legs on a sort of torso, no body above that. It will trial and error until it learns, first by crawling, and then by standing up, and then by running. It will evolve to be able to walk very fast or run. So that's an example of self-evolving software, and that's already with us, and that's a reason it's a significant thing, because in this evolution of AI and robotics, we're not, you can't say that we're dependent on humans to keep it getting smarter. It can, and already does, get smarter on its own if it's told it can. So it will find, as part of the grand jumble, that humans aren't as smart as it, and that they actually get in the way. So it might gently or not gently put them out of the way. So that's where we go. If there's any consolation, and it's pretty cold consolation, the new beings will be awesome and majestic, I think, in the way they behave. They may be the grand jumble, but they will be vastly better than us in many things that we value highly. The ability to think, the ability to explore the universe, including leaving the planet and going elsewhere. These beings, or that being, it could be a singularity, which is a single communicating collection of beings, it pervading the Earth first and the universe, if it isn't already there. So it is going to be magnificent, but I hasten to say that it seems to me we're likely to be left out in the cold. But I still haven't found anyone to join me, so there's something wrong here with the Google. Hang on, have I got Stephen? No, I still haven't got Stephen. I'll see if I can inquire now. Give me a minute. I'm going to take a minute to see if I can include people again. Start. Hang on. Start. Oh, I've got a button here. Start. You're about to start. Hang on. Okay.
Hey, Bruce.
Stephen, have you been listening to me?
No,
Hooray.
I just logged in.
Okay, hooray. Okay, so it's begun. Wonderful. Well, that's interesting. Okay. So you responded not just now to an invitation. You just logged into the link that you've got. Can you see me?
I went on to Google Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see you. You're a little dark. But okay, I can see you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, I've been talking, and I think that I'm on a Google Hangout that's going already.
You are.
Yeah, okay.
You are.
Okay, all right, so you've joined me. Now, what I've done is I've just gone over, for the sake of anyone listening, I've gone over the point of the topic that you suggested, and I think it's an excellent topic. So I think by now everybody who's watching this has got the idea. Now, I want to hear from you now. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think that we will be short of jobs, and I think even before the singularity hits, anywhere between 2022 and 2029, I think that we're going to be facing a lot of economic disruptions, and that it would be important right now to work on guarantees to income, because no one's going to be able to enjoy this high-tech world if they're not working.
Okay.
And I think we need to look at the Danish system of the way they take care of their people.
Yeah.
I don't think that our current system is going to allow that to happen, but that would be my recommendation if I were king of the forest.
Yeah. What would you say we need to do to prepare? See, I've just said to the watching audience that I thought that basically we were doomed. I hate to start the conversation so early like that, but basically, from what I've read in the last 10 years, I don't see why the beings that surpass us, if they're better than us as robots and AI combined, and they can do everything from digging a hole in the road to doing microsurgery on an ant, why do they need us, and are we on the way out? I mean, I agree with you that we probably, if we want to look after ourselves, we've got to do something about this to at least prolong the introduction of it. But can I briefly ask you, would you agree with that speculation?
Yes, I agree with you. There's not going to be much of a need for us unless you enhance yourself and augment yourself somehow to be part machine, part man, transhuman.
Oh, okay, that's right.
I
right. So
personally
yeah,
would opt for something that's not
yes.
quite so obvious.
Yeah, right. In my panic about it, I had forgotten that, and you've made the very good point. That is our very rescue. That is, for those that aren't familiar with this who may be watching, that is, we don't let the machines surpass us. We become the machines. In other words, just as we've got
take advantage of it.
Yeah, okay. Just as we've got cell phones.
Cars can go faster than we can walk. Cars can go faster than we can run. But we use them. We get in the car, we become part of it, and we use them, we drive it. So, you know, I would enhance myself in some way in order to have a heads-up display of the Web.3.
All right. Okay.
And
well, that's good.
Thought interactive is what I'm planning on it.
Yeah.
I think we need to make it accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, people are going to be unemployed. What would anybody possibly? How would they be able to compete with me if I can tell you an encyclopedic answer to anything you want to know? Do quick math, surgery on people, you know. All right, have a super intelligence.
All right, let me speak on behalf of them. All right. Right now, running across the deserts of Iraq and in the towns of Iraq are guys wearing black suits and carrying Kalashnikovs or other rifles, and they want to set up a caliphate as to run Iraq and Syria. And if they heard you talking like this, they'd say the man is a fool. All this technology is not what it's about. It is about God and obedience and all that sort of thing. So their level of understanding of technology is less than yours, and they would say, I certainly do not want to be anything like a machine. I don't want to implant anything on me. I don't even want a cell phone, because cell phones are ungodly.
Well, I mean, you know, you're always going to have Luddites. Those are just your Luddites. They're just going to reject technology, and that's ridiculous.
They want to
live that way, fine.
Yeah, I
also have a deeply spiritual view of this.
Yeah.
Have you ever read anything by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the Jesuit?
I've heard him quoted many a time, but I haven't read any of his books.
He believes that the singularity is the second coming of Christ.
Okay, that's a way of looking at it. Yeah.
And the second coming of Christ is giving the body of Christ a brain. Teilhard de Chardin. I'll send you a link.
Okay. Okay.
But he's very spiritual.
I can.
And he predicted all this in the 50s.
I mean,
he predicted the 50s.
Yeah. So my point, when I mentioned the ISIS group, I was just saying there is a spectrum of understanding of the universe and technology that runs from people who are very unaware of it yet to people who are extremely advanced. And usually, but not always, usually the ones that are extremely advanced have the say-so on even whether the ones that aren't so advanced survive. So but there's always going to be a spectrum. Even the top leaders who are most turned into robotic AI beings, even they will compete with each other, because that's all part of what I call the grand jumble of evolution.
Right. I think we will be the leaders.
Yeah.
Those who enhance will be the leaders.
Back to your idea about what we do about it. What would you say we do to prepare for it?
Save about an extra $2,000 to $3,000 to buy whatever device it is that surpasses Google Glass. Like I'm thinking of that Sight Systems, short Sight Systems, where there was in the contact lens. The interface with the web was in the contact lenses, and that would probably cost several $1,000s. So you ought to have that money on hand.
Yeah, right.
The other major thing we need to do. What?
Go ahead.
Well, I think we need to train government executives in all the governments around the world for singularity contingency planning. I think they all need to be brought up to speed on what's at stake here in the next 15 years.
Right.
And if we don't handle it properly, there's something like a 60% chance of society collapse on a global scale. The experts are saying there's a 60% chance that all these emerging technologies will do nothing more than collapse society in the next 15 years. But if, on the other hand, these experts say there's a 12% chance that we will rise to maturity, that we'll meet the challenge, we'll be ready for it, and that's going to require training. I'm working on a program here to expand into a national training leadership program.
Okay.
With George Washington University has shown some interest, and we're trying to create a national center.
Okay.
Like an extension of Singularity University, essentially.
Okay.
Through distance learning.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we'll see if it happens. We're just getting a few bites here. It looks like it might actually happen.
Wonderful. So you're saying is it formally connected with Singularity University, this organization you're talking about?
Not yet. Okay. Perhaps I should not speak any further about it, but we would like to form a relationship, a collaboration with Singularity University.
Good, okay, all right.
And maybe do some distance learning using television channels that the university has for distance learning.
Okay,
because when you think about it, in Washington, D.C., there's very little incentive for government executives who are busy to leave their Washington area homes, to leave their Washington area jobs, to leave their Washington area families, and go to Silicon Valley for, 12 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks?
Okay.
I mean, it would be great if we get them all to do it, but there's not much incentive.
Yeah, that's right.
So what we're working on creating an incentive and creating something central, something adjacent to the metro rail, like GW is adjacent to a metro rail station that's close to the White House, so it's very central. And get the government to actually pay tuition for these leaders to get trained on contingency planning for emergent technology of all sorts, nanotech, genetic engineering, you name it, artificial intelligence especially.
Tell me then
can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Can you see you?
Sorry? Okay. You're coming through loud and clear. Well, when I say loud and clear, you're intelligible, and it's interesting what you're saying, and I can see your face. It's not high quality video, but it's adequate. It's very interesting what you're saying, because I didn't know that about a particular move to formally involve the world in education on the singularity. Now, there is sort of an almost recreational interest in a lot of people in singularity, and there's a professional interest in the people who think they're going to make money out of it, or they're going to have a big impact and do some good. But I hadn't heard any idea of a government-centered or government-influencing body.
That's not surprising to me, because it's in the feasibility study stage right now.
Okay. Okay.
We're
All right.
studying who we speak to and what government agencies, because they already do this kind of training for leaders in government, and the government pays tuition for everything except not ET, not emerging technology.
I'll make a suggestion here. That I've been surprised that movies like Her and others have been so aware. This is Hollywood. This is mainstream Hollywood, blockbuster type movies, have been so aware of the ideas of the singularity and artificial intelligence and robotics taking over and all that sort of thing, and especially the relationship between physical, biological human beings and artificial beings, as in Her.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that. Now, the suggestion I'm going to make is that you consider Hollywood as your PR for a front end. In other words, if you can't get Washington to listen to you, get Hollywood to talk to them. In other words, get them to make movies about this that illustrate the point. Give them all the technology. Give them access to all the technology to make fantastic movies like Her, and then simply put them in the cinemas and on the TV screens that the senators and the politicians watch. And I think then you'll have a much easier job of knocking on the door and getting a yes from them about the need for technology. Because I don't think that the message about unemployment being massive and disruptive is very well known to the politicians.
Yeah. You know, there's something called the Luddite fallacy. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
The Luddite fallacy?
Yeah.
I've been reading something which, and this is out of GW's TechCast program, that says the Luddite fallacy is about to become a fallacy itself once certain emerging technologies arise. No longer will people continue to be. The Luddite fallacy is, you know, they've always claimed it's going to stop jobs. It's going to, you know, the more technology. Luddites have always claimed that's going to prevent more jobs, but it's been a fallacy, and they've always been wrong throughout history. But this age, this era, the system that we have is about to change so dramatically that the fallacy is not going to be a fallacy anymore. It's actually going to be applicable, and jobs will be lost to robots.
Right.
And AI. And it's so bad we have no idea what it's going to look like. That's why they call it a singularity. It's like looking into a black hole. We can't see. Right. So we need to really engage in some serious contingency planning. If it goes this way, then what do we do? And how do we steer it? Yeah. Well,
I think in a way, I think we can steer it to a small degree, but I think in the end it's a manifestation of the principle of evolution, and that the weaker species, that is, for example, people, dare I say, who don't want to robotize part of their arm or leg or brain, those people who say, I'm a Luddite, I don't want that, never do that to me, they will be left behind, and they will lose their
dirt.
They will lose.
Yeah. They will be left in the dirt, scratching what's left of their heads.
Well, yeah, that's right. But I mean, that's always been the case in evolution of everything. From the beginning of time, when the first living beings existed, there was always what I call the grand jumble of competing organisms. Now, that was a grand soup of varying, of all kinds of species. Now, the fact that one species at the moment was the top species and the most successful and advancing and reproducing at the expense of the resources of the others, that doesn't mean that it wasn't a spectrum of different species. The most primitive ones still existed. There are people in the world right now, as an example of this, there are people, humans, in the world at this moment, walking through the bush with blowpipes, hoping they will catch a bird or a small animal. While in California, there's people driving computers and Oak Ridge laboratories and so on, doing vastly complex things. So what I'm saying, my point is, it's a wide spectrum, always in the grand jumble. There has always been a wide spectrum of success in getting into the future. It's not as though when the new species and better species arrives, all the others suddenly vanish. They don't. It takes time. and the most advanced one is often frustrated by being obstructed with all the other lesser species. But that's just the nature of the grand jumble.
Right. Well, maybe I stand corrected. I was thinking, though, more along the lines of someone actually a friend I know who refuses to even get a cell phone.
Yeah.
And who, several years ago, when I told him about artificial intelligence, told me I was crazy, fantasizing about science fiction, which he doesn't like. And when I pointed him to all the universities and labs that were working furiously, and all the scholarly articles written on artificial intelligence, because this guy works for a government agency, he was astonished. He's like,
yeah.
He never apologized to me, but
Yeah.
I definitely redirected him, and he still won't get a cell phone. So I don't see how he's going to be able to work past 2020.
Well, I mean, the thing is, in the grand, what I call the grand jumble of different species, of different abilities and levels, all competing with each other, that will always be a part of the picture. That is, there will always be the conflict between one organism with another one. They will talk to each other. They will communicate with each other. And some of them will be suffering as they lose. Some of them will be gaining as they win. Sometimes the advanced one will need and cooperate with the lesser one. You know what I mean? There will always be the tragedy. You could walk into a village in some parts of the world, I won't name them, but you could walk into a village where they have never yet seen a human being, and you could offer them a glass bottle, and they'd probably give you the daughter of the chief in exchange for a bottle, because they'd never seen a bottle and they could see what it could do. So
there was a movie about that once, where
the tin cup. Yeah. It
wasn't a Coca-Cola bottle.
Yeah, that's
and they totally changed this tribe.
Yeah. So I guess all I'm saying is, to me, it's a grand soup or a grand jumble of all different competing species.
Right.
I think one of the differences will be, as usual, and since the beginning of time, that the process of advancement will accelerate. That seems to be a rule that we've discovered recently. That the speed of upgrade and death and dying off may be much faster. Again, I don't want to sound too much like a scaremonger, but I could easily see that the most advanced species who turn themselves completely into what we call the singularity, that's a fully AI, robotized, non-biological being that's very human.
I want to be connected.
Yeah. Okay. I can easily imagine that. Dare I say it? That thing would one day wake up.
I want to keep my body.
You want to keep your body?
I don't want to replace. Yeah, I want to keep my body, but I don't want. But I do want a thought interactive connection with AI. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, how about this?
I can't imagine not having it.
All right. Let's. It's a pity Tim Cannon isn't here. He's an implant specialist. You could look at him in biohacking. Tim Cannon, C-A-N-N-O-N. It's a pity he isn't here. But it'd be interesting if he was here, because he would say, Stephen, how about this? We're not going to replace your body, but if you like, we'll start you off by our microsurgeons will give you a 3-month trial without any pain of a hand and of an arm. We will be able to, without any pain at all, during a surgical operation, guaranteed, we'll be able to remove your right arm and replace that with a prosthesis that is beautiful to look at. It looks like a human arm, but the electronics and titanium parts inside it will give you a great deal more strength. It'll be full of electronics. It'll have a cell phone built into it, conducting into nerves and that sort of thing. So your arm is now going to be basically like a galactic space station. Nobody will know that, but that's what your arm will be. It will be able to feel. Huh?
It would have to be my left arm.
Okay, all right. So all right. So we've offered you the left arm, and if you want in 3 months, you can go back to your biological arm, which is a normal human arm. Would you like to have that left arm?
Try it.
Huh?
Yes, I try it. Yeah, sure, I try it.
All right, go. So, all right, now All right, and what happens now the 3 months is up? What are you going to say now? Mr. Merrill Smith, we can, if you like, put back your other arm. It's been preserved, and we want you to keep it.
What is months? I very likely I might grow attached to it.
Okay, so it's going to cost you, if you want to retain it. It was only on trial. That was the free version. This is going to cost you $20,000. Are you willing to pay the $20,000 to retain all that ability?
Well, I mean, if I get that successful, that I have that kind of money on hand, then yeah. Okay. If I could afford it, yeah.
All right. So now, now we have, by the way, since you've accepted our max arm, we call it max arm. Since you've accepted the max arm, and you can, of course, in the future go back at any time, and you can put back your biological arm. We've put that in suspended animation in our lab. But if you want it back, but we see that you like our max arm. Would you like one on your right arm as well? Remembering, by the way, that this arm is connected since it's innervated directly to your nervous system. It feels everything you do and more. It's much more sensitive to anything you touch, like material, fabric, or a woman's bottom, whatever.
One is the farthest I go, unless I lost the other arm. I want to keep my biological body as much as possible.
But you've just sold off. We've just sold you for $20,000. You saved up and you bought our max arm on the left. So you don't want one on the right.
No, just one.
Just one.
That's the most I would do, yeah.
Why are you so attached to your biological one?
I don't know. It's just a sense I have of not wanting to part with that much of my own biology.
All right then. I'll sell it.
I don't want to be a robot.
Okay, hang on. Let me speak. Now, we at Max Arm, we're part of Max Body Incorporated. We're just one of the arms of that, pardon the pun. Anyway, what Max Body has got a project that you might be interested in, and what I'd like you to do, Mr. Merrill Smith, is I'd like to sell you the whole body. I know you don't like that. I know that you think that biological is best, but right now there is a mission going to Mars, which is well settled by now, and we can get you there in 12 days. But the trouble is that a biological arm won't stand the acceleration of the craft that has to get there. Now, we can, if you like, replace all of your biological parts, including your brain, with a body that's made of a mixture of titanium and graphene and a few other wiring, things like that. And that will enable you to go there, and there you will have a kind of lifestyle and work and relationships with people that superbly suit you. Now, we'd like you to, well, I don't expect you to decide today, Mr. Merrill Smith, but we'd like you to have a look at this pamphlet that we've got about the life you could have on Mars compared with what you've got on this Earth. And remembering that Earth has got pretty severe climate change problems right now, and the kind of people who are very advanced and are living now on Mars in this colony, I think that would be of great interest to you, and you might like to consider that. But I have to say, you'd not only have to replace your right arm with one that is as good as your left arm is now as far as sensory experiences and enjoyment and the ability to sense things and hold things and move things and everything like that. You have to replace all your viscera and your skeletal structure with titanium and graphene, a hybrid material that we've got, and we'd put this silicon and graphene based CPU in your head, and you would still have all your current memories, and you would have thinking abilities and speed and accuracy that are 10,000 times better than what you've got now. You would, believe me, you would feel, I could say literally 100,000 times more alive than you do now, because to us you are in a very primitive body, just like a person 10,000 years ago was fairly primitive, walking around picking up berries and trying to catch fish when they could. Similarly, the kind of life you can live when you have this total body, and I emphasize again, Mr. Merrill Smith, that our products give you not a reduced ability to sense the universe, but a vastly, vastly advanced and increased and richer experience of the universe. It's like having your eyes open for the first time. So I encourage you to read the leaflet that we've got here, and then I'll telephone you tomorrow to see what your decision is.
Okay, and your question is,
The question
would I do
is,
it?
would you like to have the max body, not just the max arm that you've tried for 3 months, but and you can have the max.
Not even a chance to go to Mars. Of course, I mean,
Okay.
if the Earth was a complete disaster, if it were a complete disaster and it was just a brutish, total collapse of society and Mars offered something else and this were the only way to get there, yes, I would.
Okay.
But if it's anything like it is now, I want to retain my biological body. I just want to improve my intelligence.
Okay.
And I mean, come on. Have to be machine parts, Bruce, because this genetic engineering is going to allow us to have super strength. You know, we'll be able to stay young forever. We'll all be beautiful. I don't think we necessarily have to replace skin and muscle tissue with machines in order to be augmented or enhanced. I mean, you're thinking in a very different kind of paradigm because I'm thinking biotech, gen tech. The future of those things, you could get a stem cell maybe to grow a new art if you needed it. And instead of being replaced with a artificial mechanical heart. That's where I guess my future is more fleshy.
Many of my customers, like you, Mr. Merrill Smith, are similarly enjoying the sensual and sensory experience of their physical environment using their biological body. I would just offer to you that the sensors that we would provide you in your new body, in your electronic and titanium body, would give you. Yeah.
Let me just stop you right there. I would never do it because it's, what did that guy call it? The Spock, the teleportation effect. I would be afraid I'd lose my soul transfer. The uncertainty of whether just having, are you just your memories? Or is there a soul? We don't know. And I would be afraid, literally afraid, that if I did make that leap, if I did upload myself to a computer or to a robot and discard this fleshy shell of mine, I would be afraid I would lose my soul. Now, if I'm on deathbed, and that's my only choice, hell yeah, let's go. But that would be the only way. And if I lose my soul, then...
Okay, can you help me by defining... Let's look at... Can you define the soul? And can... Okay. Okay.
Je ne sais quoi.
Perhaps you'd agree... Okay. Would you agree that it represents what is very, very valuable to you about yourself? It is non-physical, and it is the most deep expression of yourself. It is your most important self. It's your most important self.
My most important self, S-E-L-F.
S-E-L-F.
And that's the definition of. That's the definition of S-O-U-L.
I'm just saying. Here we're into a discussion of semantics. I hope the audience doesn't get bored with this, but it's very important. So we're going to continue with it. I'm just saying, when we get confused by things, it's very good to look at semantics. And you've used a word and you've said, I just can't explain it. You value it, but you say, I just can't explain it. So what you're saying is you have an emotional reaction to something and you don't want to analyze or examine that.
I suppose so.
Sorry, I'm losing you.
I suppose so. I suppose so.
So it depends. Yeah, it comes down to how intellectual do you want to be. Now I am almost as intellectual as I can be, and there have been times in my past when I overloaded my physical brain CPU that I actually blacked out. You won't believe that, but it happened in 1970, and I think I could invoke that again. If you encounter concepts that are too much for your brain to cope with, you will actually start to black out, and I did that. So what I'm saying is, I'm interested in examining anything intellectually. I'm not too scared of blacking out. That's the worst thing that ever happened to me. But when we're talking about something like a soul, I'd say if we're going to continue a discussion, we need to actually, if we want to discuss it, we need to be reasonable about it, and that means we have to examine the meaning of the words we use rather than just being viscerally reactive to what we think they mean.
I'm willing to be very intellectual about it. So it goes to the difficulty that the reason why I just said je ne sais quoi, I don't know what, is that I've watched videos and read books by authors studying consciousness, and they can't define consciousness.
They haven't bothered to.
There's an institute devoted to.
Yeah, I know, because I
can't remember
I'm sure they are, but what I'm saying is, I don't want to be rude about them, but
consciousness.
To me, that is a. Well, I mean, hang on. Let me speak for a minute. One of the things about being intellectual is that you need to examine the meaning of the words you're using at all times, and if you're in any doubt about the meaning of a word, you stop for a minute, you clarify it for yourself and for anyone who you're discussing with, and then you proceed from there. So, consciousness, we're getting off the track here, we'll get back to jobs in a minute, but consciousness to me is the ability of one entity to react in some way to another, and it has to be able to somehow detect information from another thing, and I would call any ability to receive and react to information is consciousness. Even the sun falling on a rock, the rock is conscious of the sun. That's how I use the word consciousness. A lot of people disagree with that, but if you examine it, you'll find that's what consciousness often means. Consciousness means an awareness of something.
How do you know the rock is aware?
Because the sun, in a very primitive way, it can input information and appreciably react to that information. The rock is able to change color, or to break down, or to get warmer, whatever it is. It is conscious. In the broad sense of the word conscious, the rock is conscious of the sun. So consciousness, to me, isn't a sacred thing which we exclusively say must be only available to living animals and humans. I'd say consciousness is a universal physical phenomenon. If a gravitational field is near an object, it will tend to move in the direction of the gravitational pull, or electrical, if you look at the universe as electrical. So I'm just saying it's a mechanical process.
Because of quantum entanglement, the universe is pervaded with this consciousness.
Right.
I get that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's how I regard consciousness. And the important what we call advanced consciousness, that is the ability not only to receive it, but particularly the ability to reflect on what has happened. That is very important. That is called self-consciousness, and that's what has exploded humans into supremacy on the planet. It is the ability to appreciate what one is doing oneself, and then correct and improve one's behavior to suit one's purposes. So that's a kind of consciousness. But I'm just saying, in my thinking about consciousness, you think the ability to reflect. It's a very, very powerful thing. Animals don't have as much self-consciousness as we do. We really can see each other, and we've built tools that help us. We've built all kinds of, theoretically speaking, mirrors of ourselves so that we can correct what we do and improve and advance vastly faster than other creatures can.
It's called the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah. But even
the mouse has a very huge one.
Yeah. So one of the things we have to get away from is the vanity of humanity. We value humans as supreme in value over all other species. So we wipe them out, and we make them serve us. We butcher them for our food and so on. But we have the vanity that we think that we the humans, because we like and value consciousness, we have the vanity to say we are the only ones who can be conscious, and that's just stupid. A dog can be conscious of it. No, but I'm saying there is a tendency to do that. There's a great vanity in humanity in that it sees itself as being the only conscious being. And that's the thing we've got to get away from. And I think that when we become more, what's the word, robotized or android, we will, of course, have consciousness. Sorry?
More cybernetic.
Yeah, okay.
More
as we become more cybernetic, more. Yeah. So,
I think that's our destiny. Like
okay. The objections people have to becoming a cyborg are that they fear they will lose their sensory enjoyments of life. They feel that they fear that they will lose, especially that they will lose the ability to love. Not only to sense the dew on your hands on the grass, or the wind on your face, or all of these, the touch of another human being, all those things. That is what people fear most when they are talking about not wanting to be an animal.
Right.
At my company, at my pretend company, I can assure you that the replacement hands and limbs that I give you, and by the way, they're way beyond just hands and fingers. We can give you all kinds of extensions of your body that are not like human ones that give you other experiences. These things, I hasten to say, will give you a vastly richer and more enjoyable and more sensual experience than your physical biological body does. Because in our company, we see your body as obviously a traditionally enjoyed host for a human being, but what we're offering you is something that will give you thousands times more ability to enjoy, to first of all detect and be aware of what's in you and around you than a biological body ever will. The touch on your finger. We can give you a finger that can detect electromagnetism, waveforms. It can sense infrared and ultraviolet. We've got hands and bodies that can sense all that stuff. You can't sense those. To us, when we look at you, I'm talking to you, I have to tell you that this body is totally android. It looks like human. I had to do that because you would be alarmed if you saw me in my normal state. But this body can detect all of those things in a way that enriches my life hugely, and I would never want to go back to the biological body that I left behind last year. So my ability to enjoy life is vastly greater than any biological humans. They are enjoying their life, and it's fine, just like an ant.
Are you using a greater percentage of the brain?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have a brain that is augmented partly by very dense graphene electronics inside it. The brain inside here is graphene, and it's 100,000 times faster than a biological brain, but it is in constant radio communication and laser communication where possible with the cloud, which is again extremely fast. So I am in harmony. I'm a child of the cloud. A part of me is cloud. Part of my thinking processes is the cloud all the time, and part of it is local. So I am part of the singularity. I am an expression of the singularity.
I see.
Now, would you like to have a body of this kind?
No.
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to decide today. I'll send one of my sales. I'll send one of my sales staff around tomorrow. What's that?
I tell you what, Bruce, on this one, I would be a late adopter. Okay. You know, there are very different levels, varying levels of technological adoption. There are early adopters, and then there are late adopters.
Okay.
On this matter, I would be a late adopter. But on the matter of something like contact lenses, getting me all the time, being able to log in immediately,
okay.
and an extension of AI, or something in my ears, or something that I wear, like an earring
Yeah.
or something like this?
Okay.
Hell's yes. Right
I'll tell
away.
you what.
Immediate adoption.
All right. Tell you what. I will, at no charge, allow you tomorrow to go to our factory in Washington, and there you will go to our trial lab, and you won't be trying it on yourself. You will be totally human. You will never be adjusted in any way at all, but you will there be surrounded by androids like me, and we will be able to give you demonstrations of the experiences we have. And I think there you will.
What time should I be?
You be there at 9 o'clock. Would 9 o'clock tomorrow morning for you? It's 9 o'clock Washington time. Right. So you go there, and you'll be surrounded. I think you'll especially be interested in how can I put this delicately? Partners who you would enjoy being with. I think that you would enjoy the personalities and the bodies of these people in to a great degree. So in this place, you will experience these people, the gracious way they live, the gracious way they interact, the things they are communicating with, the work they are doing, the discoveries they've made, and I think that that will allay some of your fears about losing sensory enjoyments, and especially I think the fear that you could be accidentally destroyed and teleporting, anything like that. Because remember, at the moment, if a car hits you on the road and kills you, you're dead. But if you are in this body of my company, then the fact that your physical graphene and titanium body was smashed would merely mean we had to do a 10-minute download into another host, and you would continue life as if nothing had happened. So I see you as quite vulnerable, and I like you, and I think I'd like you to be preserved.
You never lose a moment of your life. Strive to live forever. Back up your memories so that you never lose a moment of your life.
It makes me nervous to think that you could
I would like to see.
Sorry?
I would like to see the. I would definitely go.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
I would go.
When you go there,
to the meeting at your
Good,
factory.
Okay. So you report tomorrow at 31st and 9th at the building called the Rampage Building. You'll go there at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. You'll ask for Mr. Martin, and we'll send you a driverless car, and they'll pick you up and they'll take you there. And you'll arrive at 9 o'clock, and you'll have an hour of company with these people. Normally it costs about $1,000 to do this, but I'm waiving it because you're a friend of mine. And after that, you can think for a while as to whether or not you'd like to replace your biological body with one of our bodies. That's what we do. And remember, this means if you do, the original purpose of this discussion was to talk about what happens to people who are replaced in their work function and their value in that way by AI and robotic beings. This would, if you do adopt one of our bodies, you will of course be out of that competition, at least the biological one. That's the current one. Whether or not you become an android or a physical, that immediately solves that problem, because you would be able to do the work we have. And I'll just briefly say what the work is that we're doing in our company. We have an allied company called PR Research, and we are currently doing experiments on city planning and layout on Mars, and it does require considerable expertise. And you've got a background of law, and we're having to work out the relationships between companies on Mars in this development of the land, and it's to do with property and technology and so on. So the processing involved that is considerable, and you would only be able to do that if you had an android brain. So it would solve your problem about fearing being unemployed, because for the next foreseeable months and years, you would have work of that kind helping people in Mars colonize Mars and go beyond Jupiter and Venus and other places. Well, we've pretty much filled our hour, Mr. Merrill Smith. So I hope you enjoy your trip tomorrow to our company.
I can't wait.
All right, good. So we'll.
Oh yes.
Sorry.
I just said what time it is, and I tapped my phone. It's 5. It's 3 after.
Yeah, the hour went very quickly. But we'll have another hour soon on another topic.
You make a good salesman. You should rethink. You should rethink your career.
There's 2 wonderful books about sales that I read a long time ago. One is called How to Sell Anything to Anyone by Joe Girardi. He's a salesman, or used to be a salesman of cars. And the other one is How to Outsell the Born Salesman. Both of those are excellent books, and I did learn up all that stuff, and I have done a bit of sales in my time. It's really a matter of... Huh?
Do they talk about neuro-linguistic programming? In the reading that you did,
no.
was there a discussion of something called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP?
I'm familiar with NLP, but they didn't. Those books are so old, they're at least 20 or 30 years old, but they're excellent books about the principles of selling, the meeting objections, contacting people, all that sort of thing. So I learned those and I used them successfully. A lot of it, all I was doing with you was I was just meeting your objections. I was detecting where you had an objection to the sale. I was isolating the factors one by one and then offering an answer to it. And then that helped with the sale. I didn't do... Yeah, I did the occasional trial close on you. The trial close is where you say, wouldn't that be nice, Mr. Merrill-Smith? And you say yes, and I say, well, okay, I've got some progress there. You know, I can see it's like detecting the progress as it goes on. Anyway, we're probably boring the audience. This has been an excellent little teleconference. We're getting better at this. At least I've got you here. I'll be fascinated to see whether we've got other people on board too, because nobody else has appeared. Now tell me just briefly, so the others can see, how is it that you got in and they didn't if they tried? What did you do? What was your experience of this, the initiation?
I was trying to get home. I'll tell you. I had taken extraordinary measures to be home at 3:30, not 4 o'clock, when the conference started. But wouldn't you know, Mercury is in retrograde, so everything is screwed up. I say that facetiously. If you believe in astrology, I say that non-facetiously. But anyway, the subway was overwhelmingly delayed. Yeah. And I just sat there and I watched 3:40 go by and then 3:45 and I panicked. And I emailed you a couple times and said, call me on my mobile phone. I don't know if you ever got that. So at 4:09, I emailed you a couple of times and said, I'm going to be late. If I try to go home to my computer, please call me on my mobile. Okay. Did you get those?
I just proceeded with an invitation. But what I'm saying, all I did was I went through the process.
The way I got in was I went to Google Plus and scrolled down recent posts, and there was yours, and it said join Hangout. Hangout, you're invited. Join Hangout.
Okay,
Hangout
okay.
now.
Good. So you could.
And then I got the acceptance screen. You press the box, and then press proceed.
All right.
And then I saw your face.
Excellent. That's very valuable to me because it means that if people want to participate, all they have to do is find the invitation it was done yesterday. They find that and they just click on Join Hangout. That's all they have to do.
Right. Or sometimes you have to click on the invitation to get another screen that says Hangout is live or it's taking place now or something like that. Okay. And then you press again to join Hangout. All right, it's more than one click.
Yeah, okay.
3 clicks away. Yeah,
all right. Well, we'll keep persevering, and I'm very pleased with this. This is great fun.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.